Hola! Welcome to your help video for quiz 6.04. So here's what you need to know to be successful in your quiz. First of all, you need to know the formula to partition a line segment. Now this formula is the one that is pulled straight from the EOC formula sheet. So this is the formula I always use because I'm not great at memorizing things. The OHS is going to show you a different method, but I'm always going to use the formula that's on the formula sheet. So this will be the method that I always use. All right, we also need to know our midpoint formula. You take your two endpoints and you do x plus x divided by 2 and y plus y divided by 2 to find the midpoint. And lastly, you need to know about ratios. So this diagram down here shows you a 5 to 10 ratio. That means there's 5 in the first and there's 10 in the second. You would write that as 5 semicolon 10, and that would be 15 total icons or people. So let's jump into the quiz. It says M is the midpoint of PQ, and the coordinates of P are this. What are the coordinates of Q? Okay, so in order to find the midpoint, typically our formula down here says you take the two endpoints and you plug them into your formula. Well, in this case, we don't have the two endpoints because Q is an endpoint and we don't know it yet. I'm going to go ahead and let Q be X and Y because I don't know it yet. But then I am going to take what I do know. I do know one of the endpoints is negative 8, 3. I'm going to label that endpoint 1 and X1, Y1. My other endpoint, I'm just going to go ahead and label X2, Y2, which as of right now, we don't know either of those. And then this is the midpoint. That's what each of them is going to equal. So if we look down here at our formula, we're going to take our x1 plus our x2, which is that second endpoint. We're going to divide it by 2, and that has to equal the x value of the midpoint. So it's a little bit different than what we're used to doing. We're used to just plugging a number in there. But in this case, we have to solve. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this divided by 2. So the opposite of dividing by 2 is to multiply by 2. So I'm going to multiply this side by 2, and I'm going to multiply this side by 2. The 2's would cancel, leaving me with negative 8 plus x2 equals 2. And then I can add 8 to both sides to try to solve for that second x value. So now I know that my x2 value up here is going to be 10. And then I'm going to do the same thing for y. So I'm going to take my midpoint formula. My two endpoints are 3 and we don't know yet. So I'm going to say 3 plus y2 equals the y value of the midpoint, which is 7. And I got to divide this by 2. Oops, forgot about that. And then I'm going to solve the equation. I want to get rid of that divided by 2, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So that leaves me with 3 plus y2 equals 14. And then to solve for that y2, I would subtract 3 from each side. So my endpoint Q would be located at 10, 11. All right, what point divides the directed line segment AB into a 2 to 3 ratio? Let me start off by saying that you can use your formula partition a directed line segment. It would work, but for me it's a little bit easier just to think about the ratio. So if I want to partition it or divide it in a 2 to 3 ratio, that means I want to split it apart into 5 total segments, 5 equal segments. So the length of AB, if I just count the length here, the length of AB is 10 units. If I want to divide that into 5 equal sections, I know each section is going to be 2 units long. So I'm going to go ahead and divide that. And hopefully now you can see this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal sections. And I want to divide it with 2 on the front end and 3 on the back end. In other words, where can I draw a point that would have 2 sections before and 3 sections behind? And it would be right there because here we have 2 to 3. So if I wanted to divide that line, it would be located at 8, 1. For the next one, this one is not The reason it was so easy to do the ratios here is because it was just a nice horizontal line. This one's not going to be a nice horizontal line, so we're definitely going to want to use our formula. Okay, notice down here in the formula, it tells you that the first point has to be labeled x1, y1. So point A, I'm going to label x1, y1. There's going to be a lot of color changes going on here. Then it says point B has to be located at x2, y2. It says the ratio has to be labeled as A to B. So the first number of the ratio would be letter A, the second number of the ratio would be letter B. And then we're going to start plugging it into our formula. So to get the x value, you need to do this first part of the formula. So I'm just going to tackle that first part first. Okay? Notice I need to start with B. We said B was 3. Then I'm multiplying B times x1. My x1 is 4. Then it says plus, and then it says the letter A. The letter A was 1. And we want to multiply that by x2. My x2 is 14. And then it says divided by B plus A. So my B was 3 and my A was 1. All right, so we have all this going on up here. You can do this in your head or you can do it in your calculator. It doesn't matter. I'll probably use my calculator, but I'll just go ahead and show you what you would do if you wanted to do it in your head. 3 times 4 is 12. 1 times 14 is 14. So we would get 12 plus 14 divided by 4, because 3 plus 1 is 4. This would give us 28 divided by 4. And then we would need to figure out what that is. So 28 divided by 4 is 4. Okay, so I'm a dork. Y'all, 12 plus 14 does not equal 28. Jeez. This happens too often. 12 plus 14 is 26. And 26 divided by 4 is 6.5. I was wondering, I was like, where is my answer? What am I doing? Okay, so I know that the x value has to be 6.5. Well, we get kind of lucky here because if we look at each of our x values, there's only one that's 6.5. So we actually already know our answer. But if it wasn't automatically known, then you would go back and you would plug it into this part of the formula to figure out the y value. All right, let's see if I can get through the next problem without making any disastrous errors. All right, it says point A is located at 510. Now remember, we're labeling point A as x1, y1. Then it says point B is located at 2025, and it tells us in the formula to label point B as x2, y2. And then it says what point partitions the directed line segment AB into a 3:7 ratio. And in our formula, it tells us the first part of the ratio is letter A, the second part of the ratio is letter B. And now we can start plugging it in. So let's just tackle the x value first. So I'm just going to deal with that first part of the equation. I need to do B times x1. So let's look up here. Our B value is 7 times our x1 is 5. Then it says plus, so I'm going to put my plus sign. A times x2. My A is 3. My x2 is 20. So 3 times 20. And it says divided by B plus A. My B is 7. My A is 3. And then we're going to multiply it out. And considering I tried to do the last one in my head and made a total ding-dong error, I'm going to multiply this one in my calculator so I don't have that same issue. So when I multiply this out in my calculator, I get 9.5. So 15.5 is not going to be an option. So in this case, there are still 2 options left. So now we need to go and figure out the y value. So we're going to use the second part of the formula. Just be really careful when you substitute your values in. Notice it says b times y1. Our b is 7. Our y1 is 10. So 7 times 10. And it says plus a times y2. Our a is 3. Our y2 is 25. All divided by b plus a. Our b is 7 and our a is 3. So again, I'm going to type that in my calculator. 7 times 10 plus 3 times 25 divided by 10. And I got 14.5, which means it has to be this answer. Okay, it says what are the coordinates of the midpoint CD, where C is located here and D is located there? Well, we got kind of lucky on this midpoint question because it gives us the two endpoints. So we can go ahead and label them x1, y1, x2, y2, and plug them straight into our midpoint formula. So x plus x divided by 2. I'm going to go ahead and get what that equals, and then we'll do y plus y divided by 2. So we get 6 divided by 2, which is 3. And then we get 4 divided by 2, which is 2. So our ordered pair, this is our x value, that's our y value, so it should be 3, 2. Okay, good luck on your quiz.